All right, so we're recording. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. This is a great turnout, which is really exciting. And I want to thank our special guest, Carissa, for hopping on. So she is someone really special to both Melissa and I. And I reached out to her and wished her a happy birthday, was it a week or two ago? And we got to talking, and she just said something that really resonated with me. And it was about just some changes she went through in her life and persevering. And I was like, whoa, we got to talk. Because this just seems like something you're really passionate about. And I think it's something that my team could really benefit from hearing, especially someone outside of what we do. Outside of coaching, she is not a coach, has no affiliation with Beachbody at all. And so I think it would just be cool to have that, we do a lot of personal development. We say do 10 minutes a day. And that's, just to help us become better in all aspects of our life, not just coaching. So I think what Carissa has to say is going to really help everyone on both of Melissa and I's teams. And it kind of got me thinking a little bit of what we're going to talk about, I thought of today. And, we hear a lot of excuses, whether, we make them as coaches or challengers. We could easily make excuses for a lot of things in life. And I think what an excuse comes down to is fear and, fear of failure, fear of judgment. If we go do something and follow our dreams, fear of what people are going to think when they see we're a fitness coach. And I think another reason for excuses is not aligning our priorities with our goals. And, I feel like if there's a will, there's a way. And, what changes could you make in your life to start aligning those priorities and your goals better? Maybe it's less Facebook scrolling, being more intentional, when you're doing your power hour and not just getting caught up in the news feed and all that. I mean, I know I'm totally guilty of that. Less Instagram, Netflix, TV, Pinterest, all of these things that can end up sucking some time out of our day that is just useless. So she's going to talk to us about things like this and share with you how she broke through her barriers to find herself and to overcome some of these fears that were holding her back in her life. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Carissa. And we went to college together. That's how Melissa and I both know her. And I'll let her tell a little bit about yourself, maybe a background, and start sharing your story then. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. I could see names, so I don't know all of you, but hi, I'm Carissa Tardiff. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for including me on your call, even though you guys probably didn't have a choice. Alyssa, I guess, and Melissa kind of enabled this platform, but I really hope it's beneficial for you. And, exactly like Alyssa said, we just had a very casual conversation, and it was just, I'll use the word authentic. And my husband's still like, why do you always use that word? I'm like, because it's, a lot of the self-development, like you said, Alyssa, a lot of the self-development I've actually invested in over the past year has been truly transformational for me. And I was able to see, and I felt it while I was at Vanguard. I'll give you a little bit of background in a second, but I felt it in me where I wasn't being authentic. I wasn't being genuine to myself. And it actually required so much more effort for me to do that. And I was burning myself out. I was exhausted. I felt like I couldn't really be true to myself and say what my opinions were. And because I was always worried about what feedback would I get, or how, what do they expect of me? How do I conform under these rules? And it was just, I couldn't really break through to who I was, but I was also not interested in it either. So we'll go there in a second. But I think it all goes back to just being authentic. And we just had a really awesome, authentic call. So I'm going to really encourage you guys. I will take breaths and kind of step back. If you have questions or commentary or stories to add, please do. Because I'd love to hear from you and see how this is relatable or not relatable to what it is you guys experience, whether it's at work or outside of work. I'll start off with saying that I graduated Bloomsburg in 2007 now with a triple major in finance, economics, and management. So I was all business focused track. I earned my master's in finance when I was at Vanguard. I started with Vanguard right out of college. It's a great company. I met my husband there. spent 8.5 years there, and held over 6 different positions within the company, which was really cool because I was able to get a really broad understanding of what it is we did, and a lot of understanding of the different client types, and also just strategy work, which I tend to gravitate towards. So that was really awesome. But my last role specifically as like a staff, so that might mean nothing to you, but if you think like the president, chief of staff, like you're the right-hand woman in this case for a member of the executive team. And they really do that in order to develop you so that you can be a broader people leader, and kind of, lead departments, and you can see how decisions are being made. And a lot more than that, but I'm simplifying it for you. And it was really cool to do that, but it also like kind of opened my eyes, and I was like, this is not like something I've wanted. Like I just continued to achieve and achieve and achieve. But I'll go into this a little bit with you and explain how our identities are created, because I think it will be beneficial for you guys to understand this. It lends itself really well into how we can just break through our own personal barriers. But I was continuing to achieve. And I was like dissatisfied. I was like, what's going on? Like, I don't want to be here. Like I said, it just took like twice as long as the effort, because although I was like engaged from the outside and I gave it my 100%, it took so much of me because I just didn't care about the financial markets. But like I told you, I studied that in college and undergrad, and just thought, I don't know, I'd like to think like most people when you graduate college, you're just like, oh, this is a good job. This is at a really like a good company. I guess this is the right path. And so I just continued to tread that water until I realized like it just wasn't serving my interests or passions really well. The talent might have been there, but the interest wasn't there. And so I was sharing this with Alyssa, that after a good year-long deliberation with my husband, I like took a step back and decided to pursue something else, and I left the company. And it was really traumatic for me. I would say, because what was traumatic was the fact that I didn't prepare for this and plan it, and I'm such a planner and controller, but you realize that you can't control everything, and that you plan and God laughs at those plans. And for me, when I took a step back, actually something like greater kind of emerged for me, because I realized that I had my complete identity wrapped up in my job, completely. And I say this to the point of like, I literally did not know how to function and operate, because I was just so used to always like emails or researching, even when I didn't like it, but I still did it. And being engaged in conversations, like my network at Vanguard and my relationships that I had built, all of those things stripped me of like who I was, because that was the only thing that I allowed myself to be identified by. All right. So it might not be unique. Maybe other people had experienced this before, but I hadn't realized the extent until I literally made that conscious decision to step back and realize, even more importantly, that I was now not having any conversations with my husband. I was like, what's going on? I'm like, why are we not, like, do we not have anything in common? And I was becoming so frustrated at that. I thought I was making a good decision to pursue an HR business like consultant role with the Fortune 500 company. I went through their job shadowing plan, and I was like, this isn't the right decision. And so then I just started questioning and doubting myself. And I was like, oh my gosh, maybe it was Vanguard. Maybe I should go back. Maybe I should just go fix it. And, the thing that I took from that was that it wasn't the job. It was like how I was prioritizing my time, how I wasn't prioritizing it, and what I deemed to be like my values, right? And that I didn't know. And that was evident because I gave 100% of myself to my job. So having made that change and kind of enrolling and just really investing in myself in MBA classes, as well as a lot of personal self-development classes that I've taken in programs, I realized, and lots of conversations with my husband, I realized that I needed to like really build myself. Like if I had a chance, like this was my gift right now, to build myself from like what I wanted and what I stood for, because my actions weren't aligned with what it is I stood for. Like I told myself that I stood for like God, and then family, and then friends, and then work, and then interests and everything else. And instead it was just like work and nothing else. And so that was a huge smack in the face. But what it really did is it forced me to create those priorities. And as part of enrolling in one of the self-development classes that I took, I realized how the identity is created. So this is really interesting, I think. I hope you guys will find this interesting, and then I'm going to kind of pause to see what your reaction is. But I found out that I discovered that, our identities are really comprised because of 3 moments in life. And so for those that were psychology majors, you probably are aware of this. And one is before you're an adult, like one is before you're 2 years old, One is when you're an adolescent, and then one's when you're an adult. And we make decisions to be something in order to compensate for something we see ourselves deficient in. Okay, so this isn't something that we're consciously telling ourselves. It's actually subconscious, but it happens because we tell ourselves we aren't good enough at something. And so for me, one of those things was I wasn't smart enough. I don't know when I made it. I was probably fairly young because I've always been engaged and involved in so many activities and doing things. But what I found is that, triple major in undergrad, always having to be like filling my time with things, it lended itself right into like my career, always being engaged in everything, but it was always around work. And that was the achievement part of me because I didn't want to give up the fact that everyone would find out I wasn't good enough and I wasn't smart enough, right? And so your identity actually is your strong suit. And so you guys might be familiar with, knowing your strengths. But this takes it to a whole nother level in terms of like, you can't change your strengths. Like you can't change your strong suits. It's who you are. It's your identity. But what you can do is you become aware of these patterns because they've served you well, whatever yours may be. They've served you well up into the point that you are at. But knowing what they actually are, your strong suits, can actually enable you to take a step back and understand like when you have triggers or moments where you just want to be reactive and stop yourself to be like, hold on, I have a decision. Like I'll give you an example. My normal behavior would be like an opportunity comes by. I'm like, oh, I want to do it. I want to go and engage in that, right? But I have to like now knowing that I want to just take on everything and overcommit and then I get stressed out and not want to like follow through and everything. I'm like, hold on a second. Like, is this really going to serve me well? Like, how am I spending my time? I was talking to Alyssa about this. Like, how am I spending my time? And like, how am I spending my money? Right. And like, those things should tell you what your priorities are. Like, because you can't just tell yourself what they are. Like, those things are actually results and they'll show you what your priorities are. And so now it's like, because I'm able to know, and I know what my strong suits and my personality is from doing the necessary self-development work, I'm able to actually engage in like really genuine, authentic conversations with people and not have to like skimp and stay surface level. And I can actually engage in negotiations because I know what I stand for, and I can break through the barriers because of the whole fear of not knowing enough. I'm like, who cares? No one knows enough. Like, that's why we have people to work with. And that's why we have the internet to research and books to read and, things to find out. Like, there's no one perfect solution. And that was the perfectionist in me that was trying to always find that buttoned up little box and put a bow on it. It doesn't exist. And so, I had a breakthrough barrier. I broke through a barrier today where it's like, normally I wouldn't have volunteered myself to speak at church, which is really important to me. But after doing all this work, I created like a pretty cool presentation that had a lot to do with like neuroscience, psychology, biblical, my story. And I pitched it to a couple people and said, whatever you can do with the content, if you want it, it's yours. If you want me to speak to it, I'm happy to. And I was invited to speak to my home church and kind of, we'll call it like minister, but preach to like my parents, which I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Like I get to do that to them, which not throwing them under the bus because I love and accept them exactly who they are, but they're also very stuck in their ways. And I'm like, that's awesome that I get to like kind of hopefully just pull them up a little bit to realize like, hey, there's a lot out there. And just because of how you're viewing the world, like that's your perception and the way that you view and interact with the world. And when you make excuses and say you don't have time for something, like you do, it's just not a priority. So like, like those are the conversations we can now engage in. And it's fantastic because once you start to break through barriers, because a lot of times you don't even realize they're there because it's subconscious barriers that are preventing you from breaking outside your comfort zone. As soon as you do that one thing, whatever that risk is that you need to take, and it could be as small as, I don't know, calling someone and being like, I'm sorry. Like, if you risk being like, I have to take on the blame, and I have to, like, if you risk doing that and putting your pride aside, like, you have to ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? And like, then what's the probability of that result occurring? And so, I'll stop right there because it's been a lot of information that I've shared with you, but it's a little bit about my backstory and how I left and I decided to take a step back. And it all comes back down to to start to take full circle from a job perspective, I was able to go after what I wanted. And I went after like a really creative, innovative role at Comcast that I'll be starting at soon in the city. And like, yeah, I'm scared. I had to build my relationships up all over again. And I don't know, I might fail, but I don't know, like, I won't know until I try. And I know enough to ask questions. And then, I know what I know and I know what I don't know, but then there's that whole thing of I don't know what I don't know, which is probably like 80% of a pie chart. And so that's where I'm really going to have to lean on people and develop the relationships and do the necessary legwork to get myself up to speed. So if I told you this a year ago, I would have been like, there's no way I'm leaving Vanguard. Like, I've been here. This is like where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And, a lot of things have kind of just disrupted me, but I consciously disrupted it and didn't realize the huge implications and how uncomfortable change is. But now that I've gone through it and I'm still going through it, it's like really awesome because you kind of start to feel fearless. And you're never going to feel fearless, by the way, but like it's a really addictive feeling. So I'll stop right there and just ask, what resonated? What do you potentially have a story for, or what thing are you most afraid of, or what barrier do you think, if you've given it some time, that you feel like you get to a certain point and then you just get stuck and then you avoid it and then you hope it goes away and it never goes away? Like, want to hear a little bit from you guys, from you ladies. Is there a gentleman on there too? I thought I saw from you guys.
Marlene's husband might have been the one you saw. I don't know where Chris is. He's floating around there somewhere. So, Norma, do you want to go first?
Let me get somewhere I can talk. Okay. Well, I have heard this. I've heard a version of this philosophy before. The part of that you said about what you choose to do, and maybe even some of the daily ways that you conduct yourself are things that are reflective of what you feel like you're missing or were missing, or someone told you way back when that you weren't good enough at, or you didn't have enough of, or et cetera, et cetera. It could even be that, you came from a family that has never had anyone graduate from college. It's just as simple as that. And then you just worked and worked, and you're like, the more college I do, the better I'll look, and on and on. But, or that females weren't valued or something like that. And, gosh, relating this to myself, I probably have a bucket full of these. I think that one of the things probably was that I think there is one thing that I could probably relate it to. My parents always it just seemed like they always said something like, oh, you can't do that, or you can't do that. And maybe it started out as you can't do it because you're young, or you can't do it because you're a girl, or you can't do it because we don't have enough money. But that spills over. And so I just had this, attitude where like, oh, if you said I can't, then here I go. I'm getting ready to prove you wrong. And I don't even know. I feel like I'm rambling. I don't even know if this is what you're talking about. But
no, you're right on point. You're not rambling at all.
Okay. So that's why, a lot of times, so I still hear my mom say it sometimes. She's almost 85 years old, and I'll say, oh, Mom, did you call the company and ask them if you could get reimbursed for that? Oh no, they're not gonna say that. They're not gonna say okay. And I'm like, well, you haven't even tried. So this is something that I've been trying to overcome for a lot of years, and I bought into that. I was taught that, I was brainwashed that, and I feel like once you get, and it does create a fear, because getting on that phone and calling and asking them to change their mind, or asking them to reverse their decision or whatever is scary. Somebody might tell you no, and maybe let me just jump off that track real quick and tell you, I worked for a manager I'm a nurse, and I worked for her when I worked downtown at major children's hospital. And I don't know what we were talking about, but she said, let me just tell you something. The worst thing that anything that could ever happen to you when you ask someone for something is for them to say no. But if you don't ask, the answer is definitely no. So that is something that changed my mind. I don't even know if that woman knows it. I should call her and tell her. But it's just totally changed my mind about approaching things. Sometimes I feel that fear creep back up in me. Like, especially Alyssa knows I've been struggling with sharing the business with people, and I'm wondering if, like, is this my problem? You know, is this creeping back up from years gone by, that I feel like someone is going to think, you know, I'm a weirdo, and they might say no, and so this is something that I've been trying to put back into play or overcome with what my manager told me years ago. All they can do is say no.
I think, and maybe Norma, you feel this way, and maybe some of you guys do too, you know, that with presenting the business opportunity is, I think a lot of people, especially newer coaches, are afraid they don't know it all, like Carissa said. And if you're afraid you don't know it all, or you don't know enough, then you're afraid to talk about it. You're afraid, like, what if they ask me a question I don't know an answer to? And then I have to admit, you know, either I don't know the answer, or, you know, try to give them another answer, you know, and there's, you know, just some unknowns with presenting that. And, you know, we forget that we don't always have to know it all and be perfect. We're not personal trainers. We're not nutritionists. And it's okay to say, like, you know, I don't quite know the answer to that. I'm still also learning. I haven't been doing this that long. That's okay to say. And then, like, refer to the team page, or, you know, find the resource somewhere. Would you say that that feels like a reason too, that maybe it's hard to present it, is afraid that, because I know it was for me. I'll admit that, like, for a while talking about coaching was uncomfortable because I didn't know, like, what do I say? And then once they're signed up with me, then how do I get them started? I don't know if I know enough to help someone else get started, because I don't know it all. Can anyone relate to that? Show of hands, maybe? Yeah? All right. Well, good. I'm glad I'm not alone. Does anyone else have something they want to share before Carissa picks back up? Kim?
I can share. Through, like, the very first second she started talking, I was like, yep, I feel you, because I feel the same way with my job. I don't feel satisfied with my job whatsoever, because I feel like, take it back, I feel like I'm going against everything that I want. I want to help people, but really all I'm doing is rejecting people for getting their wheelchairs for Medicare. So, you know, I feel like I'm going against what my values are, but at the same time, you have to pay the bills. And, you know, I feel like the same that Norma was just saying, I am a little afraid to share the business, but for different reasons. Not because exactly what she was saying, but, you know, up until recently, I didn't start my own team page like we have the Team Fit and Free. So I was like, well, I don't even know what I would do with these people, like, just throw them in there. But I was more afraid of, and Alyssa, you kind of know this, like, of people telling me no, because ever since I've started, I've gotten people, so many negative Nancys on my page who will, like, find the most negative in all of my posts. And over the last, like, month or so, it hasn't been too bad since I've been putting more and more out there and being more vulnerable. But, like, I don't want to share my full story because of that. And, you know, just the fear of the messages that will come into Facebook is definitely something that I need to find a way to overcome. So I definitely need some more personal development on that, just to overcome that in myself.
You know, thanks for sharing that. I'm looking for my phone, and I didn't want to be too disruptive. I'm not finding it. I might have to follow up with you. But there's, like, a really good, I have no idea where it went. There's a really good book by Gabby Bernstein, I want to say is her name, and she kind of has the same type of fear, and because she's, like, a pretty well-renowned self-development junkie, if you will. And people would kind of rain on her parade, and she'd feel her triggers get up, and she naturally wanted to defend herself in her position. And she's like, okay, I'm going to stand in this place of love and acceptance and just continue on moving forward towards my intention, and not allow this like negativity to like crawl into my life, and allow it to like allow me to conform to this reactive situation. You know what I mean? And that's like really hard to do, because all you want to do is come from this place of like defend, and you want to look good, because we all want to look like, we all want to be accepted. It's just a universal human thing. And so you're worried about looking good, and are they going to judge me? And chances are, like, we did this really cool exercise in the program that I just took like a month ago. And chances are, like, the person next to you is afraid of you, but you're afraid of them. And you know what I mean? So it's like this cyclical thing. And it's like, when we all did this exercise, we're like, all right, that's actually really ridiculous. And I still look around my shoulder at night, like when I'm walking in Philly, because like I am a little scared there, and that's not going to happen. Like, that's not going to change. But now when I like go into the DMV and got my license, I was like, okay, I'm not going to look around and be like, who's there? And what are they doing? Are they going to sit? I'm like, I'm just going to go get my business done and, you know, make friends along the way. But everyone else, it's like, that's such a silly example. But it's almost like you just become this, I don't want to say like fearless person. It's just more, you're allowed to start chipping away, and you pull off these layers that exist on all of us, whether we know it or not. Kind of Norma, what you were saying when you were a child, like, this is true and it happens. It's in all of us, and it's enabled us to survive, but it's not necessarily allowing us to thrive. And so, like, you know, it enables you to kind of chip away at all these, like, all these things that are on us to protect ourselves. And it's not really allowing us to be our full, we'll call it like self-expressed self. And I hear you. Like, I didn't make that decision overnight with, you know, not being in the job that I wanted. And there's I feel like it's Tony Robbins, I think one of his podcasts with Joe Wooden, I think, is coming to my head. They had this conversation around the fact that, you know, there's a difference between like character there's a difference between like your passions and your interests and your gift. And your gift is, everyone has gifts. You're born with gifts. And you know, it's what you are really good at that comes with the least amount of effort. But then there's also passions and interests too, right? And he goes about this, like, he has the approach of like saying, you shouldn't just go dive into your passion and your interest, because you may not be gifted, and you may actually, you know, that could be a really bad failure, like you said, and you won't be able to pay your bills. So there's a way to go about it, and seeing like, okay, well, how do I start to chip away at this and really explore, instead of telling myself like, I don't have time for this. It's like, well, you do if it's a priority, and if it's something that you really want to go and explore, and it's important to you because of, you know, you want to get and gain a certain level of satisfaction, not necessarily your entire satisfaction, because that's going to come from yourself, you know, and also from like faith for me. But like, I think it's really important to, like, when you see talent and interests like married together, like, you just notice a difference for yourself, for your life, for everyone around you, for the company. So, you know, I think it's just, it's really knowing yourself. And you know, I love that you brought that up, because, and I'll send you what it is. I forget what she exactly said, but I know I have the audio book. So I will follow up with Alyssa and let you know what that, the book is, and also like the excerpt that she said. But it's essentially around like recognizing it and being like, okay, I hear it, but I'm not going to react to it. Like, I'm just going to allow that to continue to play out, because they're really like, I'm trying to achieve a goal, and here's my like bigger picture. Like, they're not going to pull me back down into their negativity, which, you know, it exists everywhere, because people always want to try to be like one-upping each other. And that could be a way that someone else is expressing their self-defense mechanism on you.
I wanted to also ask you, Carissa, you know, you mentioned about sending me that book name. If you have any other personal development books or recommendations that you think have really helped you that you could send, then I can post them in our private group on Facebook and share that, because we're supposed to be doing 10 minutes of personal development every day or more. I think a lot of the times that gets pushed, you know, aside. A lot of people, you know, are like, oh, I don't need self-help and all that, and how important it is. And I know I was one of those people in the beginning too. And the more I've done it and grown, the more it's helped. So I think someone said Norma raised her hand, and then I wanted to have Jenna talk too. So Norma and then Jenna, touch on how you're relating to this.
I just wanted to say real quick, just off of what Kim was saying as she was mentioning the negative post, and I saw a sample of that one time that she shared with us, and I was just like blown away, first of all, that someone would comment on such a thing and be so negative. However, they're out there. And Kim, as you get older, like me, you will weed those people out. And you finally get to a point where you will only encounter those people every now and then instead of all the time. And here's what I was going to say about that. If you had anything, like Carissa said, way back when, that made you think or feel a certain way about yourself, if had any negativity at all, here you are trying to push through and overcome, and you're doing a great job, and you're doing something awesome in Beachbody. You're improving yourself, improving your self-image, you're making your body healthier, and then you get these pokes. These people poke you with their negativity, and in comes that ugly thing again that reminds you, or tries to remind you, or tries to tell you, see there, you never really made any progress. That is, I'm going to go spiritual on you, that is the enemy in someone else's face. That is the enemy all over it. And you will just have to put on your spiritual armor and deny and revoke that. And that's the only thing that's going to help you to overcome. I just want to make one suggestion on a book I've read by Beth Moore. She's an awesome ministry. She's in ministry, a woman, but it's called So Long Insecurity. You Have Been a Bad Friend to Me. It changed my life. It changed my life. I read it about 8 years ago. And it talks about fear. And it talks about some of the most successful and beautiful models and people that still, why do these models have divorces? Why do these successful people have, they still have the same insecurities that we all do down deep inside. They're not any different because they have more or something more beautiful, what we think is more beautiful than us. So she does an awesome job in researching. If you know anything about Beth Moore, she's like queen of research. And so it's not just her opinion. She polls people, women and men around the world to make this book. So anyway, that's my suggestion. So Long Insecurity. You've Been a Bad Friend to Me, Beth Moore.
Sorry, I had a hard time getting unmuted there. So I was just going to say, I kind of connected when you were talking about kind of the same thing as what Kim said, just at times feeling unhappy with not only your job, but that I love the job I have. Changes really changed the way I felt about Beachbody and the way I felt about me and a lot of other things that came through. And I think, like you said, it's just important to find, what matters to you. And I've slowly been doing that again, but I definitely made that connection there and found that, like, I'm a little opposite of some people. I do like my job, but I had a hard time finding that balance once I got pregnant, because I felt like I wasn't the coach I always was and the person I always was. And I always the way I always frame it out to people is I lost who I was, but it's not that you lose it. You're changing with it. So that's definitely my connection and still my struggle every day, but I'm getting there step by step.
Okay, so I was ignoring the chat before. Thank you, ladies, for sharing that. And I love Beth Moore. She's fantastic. Norma, another one you probably already are familiar with, but is Joy Spire. She's another one that's just really, yeah, okay, you're shaking your head. Yeah, she's phenomenal. I listen to a lot of her videos and YouTubes. So I will definitely send you a list. I do a lot of podcasts, and it's going to be helpful too when I'm taking the train down. So I tend to go back to your comment around self-development. I wasn't always like this. Like, I think I always naturally gravitated towards like improving myself. And, I did actually always like my job, or I thought I did. I was good at it. So I think actually my belief system, I started to become aware of what my belief system was. And that's when I went through that process of making some change. But what I've realized actually is that the more I invest in myself, the more I'm actually able to invest in other people and my job. And, it's kind of like a cascading effect. It affects everything, my relationships, all those things that are priorities to me. So, not plugging this because I don't have my own self-development like book that I'm like trying to pitch or anything like that. But who knows, maybe someday if I break through that barrier. But no, I really would like find what really like excites you, because, you're going to get recommendations from a lot of different people and you're going to be like, and that's okay. Just don't spend your time there, because it's not, same thing with my church. Like, I had to go church hunting for a while, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I really love this one. So like find those outlets that really work for you. Don't feel like you have to conform, is the one thing that I'll say there. But I wanted to touch on something because we were talking about, oh wait, I know that Alyssa, you said, sorry, how come I can't scroll up here? Oh, there we go. All right. So can you share the importance of those self-development classes? Okay, cool. I touched on that in the books. All right, awesome. Just wanted to make sure I got to those. But the one thing I wanted to kind of extend off of, like we talked a little bit about, how your identity is created. And like, it's not easy. Like, you can't just be like, oh, who am I? And you wake up one day knowing exactly who you are. Like, it's a process. And, like I really would encourage you, because it's really challenging to hold a mirror in front of you essentially and being like, oh my gosh, this is who I am. Like, these are all my habits. And, some of it's you're going to get, if you do decide to do some type of work and get involved in, and I'm sure you guys have already done that being coaches. It's really rewarding, because you kind of, once you accept what the truth is, you get to change that, right? Like, you get to change who you stand for, because, your past doesn't limit you. Like, your past is in the past. It's experience, of course, you want to learn from it, but it doesn't define you unless you allow it to anchor you back in the past. And like the future for me is like, that's where I was stuck half the time, because I'm just like a strategy person. So I was constantly always planning for the future, whether it was home or whether it was at work. And if you constantly do that, like, you're going to have anxiety. So I can attest to that. You will. And then, it's like the best thing to be like in the present moment. So, the biggest thing, like with understanding and really spending the time to dig into yourself, and, some days maybe it's like 1 minute and you only get to read a quote, like, that's fine. Do what makes sense for you. But when you get to that point of feeling content with who you are, and for me, it was a lot of exploration of who I'm not and what I don't like. And that was really great for me to realize, like, oh, I'm very clear on like what actually I want, at least right now. And you can, you kind of get into your own, and you're like really comfortable and content with just being present in the moment. And, I'm a huge like yoga person and mindfulness. I took a couple resiliency classes with the Mayo Clinic, and I absolutely love, I'm like really good friends with a couple of the key psychologists out there in Minnesota. And I just love it. I think it's so fascinating, because it's something that the eastern side of the world has been practicing this forever, and like it's just starting to come mainstream to the Western. And it's so important, because if we're constantly like doing activities, like we're doing activities, but like it may not actually be impactful in what it is we want, because it might even line up with our priorities. So like that's kind of how it comes all full circle. And that's just why, my take on it is like invest as much as you can into whatever your circumstances are in yourself, because whether you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a sister, you're a friend, you're not going to be able to give as much to other people if you aren't 100% yourself. So like make sure that you are like good and clear on whether that's health, fitness, and it doesn't have to be just physical health. It's also like mental health. Like that's extremely important. So that's one thing I'll say there. Second thing I wanted to bring up, because we started talking about the identity, was, this notion of like left and the right brain. And I'm going to simplify this a lot to make sure it makes sense. And I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'll claim that, but I know we have a nurse in the room, so that's cool. Maybe you'll be able to add on. But like, there's like the left and the, there's like the left and the right part of the brain. And like long story short is like your right part of your brain functions. I mean, they function a lot more complex than this, but your right part of your brain is like observing. So I'm observing and I see, you know, that Norma has a tank top on right now. Okay, cool. My left part of my brain is like interpreting what I've just observed. And like this happens for all of us. Like this is just how the mind works and operates. And it allows us to make meaning of the world, right? Like it's how we operate and how we recall, how we store information. It all comes down to meaning, because me seeing that Norma has a tank top on right now, I'd be like, okay, so what? But I'm not assigning anything to it. There's nothing there. I'm not attaching anything to it, right? There's no story being told, if you will. But the left part of my brain is for that, because then it would say, well, so what? So what about that? Be like, oh, it must be hot there. So, okay, I'm going to associate some meaning. So she must be really hot and she's comfortable, or maybe she just worked out. And so I'm starting to interpret what that means to me, like through my eyes, right? And this is really important because when you associate meaning, it's good. That's how you need to operate and learn. But it also can go on the negative side, because we can tell ourselves stories that then become a truth, and then becomes a belief, and then that becomes the world and our comfort zone that we operate under. So I'll give you an example. And this didn't happen, but if it did, I probably would have reacted like this. My boss responded to me with 2 words. Okay, that's observation. That's the right part of my brain. Cool. That's a fact. The left part is going to observe it or interpret it and be like, okay, he must be mad at me. Maybe that paper that I sent him and that, you know, white paper didn't really fulfill on the needs. Maybe I didn't meet the objectives. Maybe I'm not really good at what I do. Oh my gosh, am I going to get fired? Like, do you see what I mean? Like, so it goes down, if you allow it to, into this like negativity. And again, it all stems back to the fact that like, we're not good enough. It's universal. Like we're all flawed. And like, yeah, that's the ideal world. Like there are no perfectionists. So we can just let go of that standard. But if we choose to allow ourselves to create that as a truth, and we'll do that by potentially polling, right? I could poll one of my colleagues and say, do you think that just happened? Like, did you see him walk out of his door? Like, wasn't he like really mad? And then that becomes, so I'm seeking evidence. And then I'm going to confirm that by saying like, oh my gosh, she agrees. That must be the truth. And then that's the truth. And now that dictates a new belief for me and how I operate and interact with my boss. Like, so this is all happening subconsciously, but I tell you this because I think it's so important, not only for yourself to like just break through these false beliefs that we have in our head. And I love how Norma went to like the faith perspective, because like, yeah, I truly believe like that's the devil like messing with your mind. Like in my mind, like it is, because it's not the truth. The truth is only the word, and the word is what we read, which is the truth. And then how we operate is like observations, right? So like the less, I'll say, emotion that you can tie into conversations in your head about yourself or about the world you see in it, you can make assumptions, and that's okay, because you're protecting yourself. You're surviving in this world, right? But you're not thriving. You're not going to thrive if you seek all this evidence. And trust me, we all do. We just don't know about it. And I did. And then I realized like, oh my gosh, all these stories that I was telling myself, I was like, and my one friend called me out on it that did this with me. And I was like, good, please keep me accountable, because, like we need to, as we change this behavior, like I never want to go back into that like cloudiness in my head where I was operating under all these like false pretenses. And so I'll pause after this, but like, that's like really key to spending time for yourself to realize like, what you're thinking, if it's truly factual. Are you just telling yourself a story? Are you seeking evidence? Because that's going to confine you in whatever it may be. It may confine you from going outside of your house and going into a situation out of your comfort zone. It may confine you from engaging in a relationship or a conversation with someone. Whatever it may be, it's going to confine you so that you can't actually be your best self. And I just want to bring that up because it's like, that's not fair. Like, that's not humanity. Like, that's not why we're here on earth. We're not here on earth to be afraid of each other. Like, we're here on earth to like help support and achieve goals, because we all have a variety of gifts. And like, that's what we're here to do. I will pause. I hope I'm not talking too fast, by the way, because I have a tendency. Okay, cool. Because I have a tendency to talk fast. My mom always tells me that, and I don't listen. But I didn't drink caffeine on purpose tonight because I'm like, all right, maybe I should take a little bit of her input. All right, I'm glad I'm seeing shakes now. But I'll pause right there just to see what your reactions are, or if you guys want to share anything else.
I think it's definitely easy to get in your own head. And I am definitely living proof of that. I've had a lot of stuff going on in my life the past couple of months, and I just went to Reiki actually for that, and it really helped. Because you can constantly, like, literally that will take your entire energy for the entire day out just by what you're thinking and how your brain works and just how you can make up all of this garbage. And it's funny because when I went to Reiki, she could tell my mind was like going crazy. By the time I was done, I was like calm and my mind was clear. And even though that was a couple days ago, like, I still feel very clear. But when my mind was going crazy, it literally ate up all of my energy. So it affected everyone around me. It affected my kids. Us moms, we probably get that a lot because we have a lot of stress. But it affected my businesses. It affected everything. So I think that if you can definitely, like, try to clear your mind of all of that, it definitely brings you to a better place, and you can start to be that positive, the best version of yourself that you can be. So I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, and I don't want to prevent someone else from sharing, but just to add on to that, Melissa, thanks for sharing that. It's, it could become like really detrimental to ourselves and those we love if we decide to make decisions or take action based on all of those false pretenses, right? And you're probably going to get consumed. You may think you have brain fog, or it's like, oh my gosh, how did I forget that? And don't beat yourself up, first of all. Like, practice self-love. I don't think anyone can master it. Maybe like a Buddha or maybe I'll be able to meet someone like that. That's awesome. But, like, you're not going to be able to master it unless you're spending literally your entire day doing, like, practicing self-love. But, like, really give yourself a break and realize, like, all right, you know what? That sucks. I did forget that. But don't consume yourself, like Melissa was saying, with, like, going down those rabbit holes, because then you do. And then you're giving yourself up for those other things, like those priorities that you set, and for you to make, like, well-intentioned decisions or actions, or just to be present in the moment. Because if your mind's constantly going, you're really not there, and you're going to miss whatever that engagement is. And trust me, that other person, whether they tell you it or not, they're going to know. They're going to know if you're really there or not. And it also makes note writing so much easier. I actually don't take notes that much anymore, like, especially in classes and things. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what it's like to actually, like, remember things and be in conversation. Like, what was I doing my entire life? Like, right, my head was down, like, in a notebook the entire time, probably missing the message. But oh well, at least I'm learning
now. And I know, like, going back to Kim, like, is she still on here? I don't know. Going back to Kim, like, you can get your mind can go crazy when you have one negative, like, message from somebody or one negative comment from somebody. Then you start to think, like, oh, does this person think of this of me, this of me, this of me, this of me? Maybe this person does this, maybe this person does that. And then you truly believe it, and then you walk around feeling down about yourself because of this one little thing. So there are definitely triggers that obviously can get you into that. It's just a matter of how you learn how to stop it from happening. If you get that negative comment from somebody, and it happens to everyone, Kim, so just don't feel like you're the only one, because it does happen to everyone. It's happened to me several times, and you just have to, how you handle it is really what you need to just, like, work on, and do your positive development and continue to try to be positive, and continue to stop your mind from telling yourself that you are those things. So yeah. Anybody else want to say something? We have some new people on here. Come on.
Jessica looks like she might want to say something.
Putting you on the spot.
I saw her nodding her head like she was agreeing with you.
I agree in a little bit of what Kim said. I have a profession. My background is architecture and interior design. I mean, I love what I studied. The position that I'm working in right now is a kitchen designer, and at the Home Depot, and that's all I do, just either kitchen design or be working in the aisles. So at times I do just get aggravated, and I'm like, I have to go back to work, and I don't like that feeling, like, I don't like the feeling that I sometimes feel like, gosh, I have to go back to work, when it's something that I really enjoy doing. And then what our group has taught me is that I have to be I had to first enjoy what I do, which I do. I love taking the shakes every day. I love putting the motivational quotes, but like what Kim said as well, like that also has happened to me, and not just with friends on Facebook, but like family members. I have one close relative that she tells both my sister and I, because we're both doing this, that we're just doing it for the money. And then we're like, do you see the money? Like, there's nothing. We're doing it for us. Like, they've seen my transformation. They love it. But it's just a little negative things or sparks that they put into us that it's like, at times it does make us feel bad. But I just keep on telling Erica, my sister, let's just forget what they say and do what we're doing. It's been working for us. Let's just keep a positive mindset. And I mean, if we don't believe in ourselves, then no one else is going to believe in us. And that's what I like about this as well, that to be the product of the product. But then we have to believe in it, because if we don't, nobody else will. And so I have a little bit of everything from what everyone has said today. And like I also mumble and I talk really, really fast and I'm put on the spot. Thank you, Lisa. But it's okay. So I hope that you guys understood what I said.
No, you actually don't at all. Like, maybe that's the thing that we just need to get out of our heads. So I'm right there with you, girl. No, you were very clear. And, you know, I have a couple reactions. So you said about, you go in and it's like, sometimes you're just like, oh, I don't like it, but you love what you do. And, I think that's awesome, because it's like, you're honoring your commitment. You're like, I committed to doing this just because I'm not getting instant gratification right now. Like, you're looking at it for the long term. Right. And like, I think that's the other distinction is like, there's something to be said about mirroring talent and passion and interests. But at the same time, like, we do have to show discipline and integrity. Right. And like making sure that we're not just jumping, because like you read the latest reports and it's like people, I don't know, I think you change jobs like every 2 years or something. So it's like, including that employees are less loyal, but so are companies. And so like, it's, you get something and it's like, you're grateful for that opportunity. And that like, hey, that could lend itself into who knows what other opportunity for you. And it's like you staying committed and learning and being willing to throw yourself into that right now is going to like pay dividends for you no matter where you go. Mm-hmm. And like, you mentioned something too, like with nitpicking, and yeah, like Melissa was saying, and Alyssa, like there's always going to be someone who's clear on like what they do. Someone who's clear on what they do, really, it's intimidating to other people. So they're going to want to pull you down. I don't know why. It's the human behavior. I don't like it. I do resist it. I actually usually call it out, but in a nice way sometimes. But like, I think it's really important for you to like continue to do, like, be who you are, because if, sorry, my dog is like coming over here. Hey, sweetie. So I think it's like really important, because like if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything, right? And then that's when like the devil, like evil, like wins, and you're left feeling helpless, and then you're like self-sabotaging yourself. So like when those things do happen, and they will happen, like consider it just a test. And consider it a test that you're going to win. And then when you win, it's going to only fuel your motivation to continue being that person that it is that you stand for.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
What about Marlene over there? Marlene, what's going on in your world? Yeah, you have to participate in this thing called life. I'm going to pick on you. You don't know me, so I can pick on you.
Sorry if the volume's not right. I'm having technical difficulties tonight.
You're fine.
Past few months, I've been doing a lot of personal development. I actually joined a group through another friend who's in a direct sales group, and it's just all moms who themselves are, she calls them the mompreneurs. But through there, I started taking one of her classes, and it is just amazing, just learning where I thought I had already took the time to learn things about myself. I've learned, nope, totally wrong. Things that I thought I'd already addressed. I myself was a psychology major, so I was like, oh, I don't need personal development. I did that when I was in college. But yeah, it's it's something that I learned that a lot was holding me back was I was afraid of what my family was going to say. Because they were always the ones who were like, oh, you just want attention. And with having lupus, I was afraid to share my story. And then I was also afraid, okay, how can I be a health and fitness coach when I have days where I absolutely cannot get out of bed? You know, how am I going to lead other people? But then I reminded myself, the days that I can do it are the most important days that I get it done. And also with our company, we have programs where you don't have to be very physical. Tai Chi is amazing when you have chronic illness and your joints are hurting, and there's a whole group of people that I can reach, which then I realized, wait a minute, I wasn't looking at the right people. I was trying to shove it down everyone's throat, if you will, and I think a lot of us do that in the beginning. So I wasn't relating to the people that I was actually approaching. I couldn't relate to them, they couldn't relate to me, and I truly didn't know who I was at that point in time either. So how could I know who I wanted my target audience to be if I didn't know who I was? So for about a month, I really honed in on who it is that I want to work with, who it is I relate to. I'm going to get people outside of this avatar that I've made, because there's going to be, a few key things that will relate. I don't expect to get someone 100%, and if I do, I pity our team, because more than one of me might be too much to handle. But the biggest thing for me that I took away from the personal development was that I had to learn exactly what I wanted in my vision, who I wanted to help, and what I had to offer. Because with Beachbody, I kept coming up with this, how the heck am I going to offer something to someone when they can turn to Alyssa, who's done it for a while. She's got this great team. Nicole, who came in, and she just, right from the jump, she was off. That's not me. How can I relate? And the better word was, how can I compete? How can I offer something? And that was learning that you didn't have to compete. I'm not competing against any other coach, even the top coaches out there, because the thing that's different is me. The one thing I can offer that no one else can offer is me, my experiences, and there's always going to be people out there to relate to that. And that was like the biggest thing this past month that I took away. It was like, wait a minute, I'm just as good, and learning I am enough. I don't have to try to be something I'm not. I am enough. And I was always about personal development. It was like I would do it when I had time. I personally didn't make time for it. But now it's a must. It gets done first before anything else. Then I work out. It's like the way I do my vital behaviors has changed, the order. Because I realized I have to work on me before anything else will go into play. But yes, I rambled because I did take my meds before I got on.
No, so I don't think you were rambling at all. Thanks for sharing that. I also have an autoimmune disease too, so I can relate to you with that. And I've kind of allowed it to not define me. Actually, I definitely didn't. It wasn't like that initially, and I was in denial. But then now it's like I've actually beat it because of my mentality and, how I choose to participate in my health and fitness. So that's awesome. I love your attitude around like, well, how can I do, like, you almost kind of set yourself up to be like a fraud. Like, how can I do this if I'm actually this person? But what's like really cool is that you're going to have that story to tell those people that you coached, and they're actually going to be going through and facing their same, like, different battles, but with the same principle, right? So you can relate to them from like a place of authenticity, which I think is awesome. And the other thing that I was just going to comment on was like the comparison factor. Like that's really, really dangerous. And like we all do it because that's what we do. Like we want to like make sure, are we fitting in? Are we liked? Or, you know, that person is wearing this. Should I wear that? And then you start to lose like your sense of self. Like you said, like then you really had to figure out like, wait, what is it that I want? Like I can go and live this other double life, but it's not serving me. And by the way, it's really exhausting, you know, like to live up to someone else's expectations. And at the end of the day, like you go to bed with you, like they're not responsible for you. And like, I really love the fact that you kind of like just took control and took charge. And like, how is that, I guess just one follow-up question, like how is that playing out for you right now as being a coach?
Well, I ended up going back to like my key challengers. They have been with me from like the beginning. And I reached out to them because they become like your go-to challengers. They're like always there when you say, I have a new challenge group. They're like, yes, I'm in. I reached out to them and they're like really close friends now and asked them, you know, listen, this is some of the doubts I've been having as a coach, as a leader, you know, and they were like, no, you know, you inspire me every day to do this. And it was all things that I couldn't see in myself. And now it's like I'm realizing, you know what? It's there. I wasn't seeing it, and it has propelled me to like really start on my Instagram. I'm messaging people. Like I'm taking that initiative before. I'm no longer doing what I like to call the Field of Dreams post. You know, post it and they will come. No. Only like what 1% that happens, and then you sit back going, oh, I didn't make the sense club. But, you know, it's those follow-ups to that. It has, you know, really pushed me to do that. And having someone contact me that says, oh, my God, I've been following you for a year. I was like, really? You don't comment? No messages? And she's like, I really love what you're doing and keep doing it. And it came out of the blue. And that's where I had to remind myself, just because they're not saying anything doesn't mean that they're not there. And that, for me, is what, anytime I feel like I can't do this anymore, is it worth it? I look at that message, because I took a screenshot, and it's actually my wallpaper. And I look at it to remind myself, there are how many other people out there that are doing the same thing. And even like to touch base with the negative comments, I went way outside my comfort zone in the summertime, and I did a bathing suit shot. That was scary. I mean, I'm a thick girl. And that's where I did get someone who made a very nasty comment on my Instagram about it. And this is where I know personal development has come into play. Old me, I would have told him where to go, how to get there, and instructions not to return with some choice language. Instead, I was just like, oh, thank you so much for, you know, taking the time out of your day to, you know, look at my picture. And he, you know, he kept trying to make me mad, but, you know, at the end of it, he was mad. And I was just like, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but thank you so much. You know, I am so happy that you took time out of your life to spend this time having this conversation with me. And it was just like, it was more rewarding to not get mad about it. And it was just like, you know, that's his problem. It's going to be his bad day. You know, there's a million trolls out there. The whole reason why I won't do Periscope. But there's going to be those people out there. I've had family members make sly comments and that. And I know it's more about how they feel about themselves than how they feel about, you know, with me. And I'm not giving that power over. I'm a control freak. And once you realize that, and you let that switch go off in your head, that when you let them ruin your day, you just gave all the power to them and all the control. And it's not worth it. And realizing that stuff and just being like, you know what? Yeah, there's this good old-fashioned, or yeah, I guess you could say old-fashioned now, thing that you can do when someone puts a comment you don't like. Delete it. and move on with the day. And I have done that, and I've had people say, oh, well, you deleted that. You must be hiding something. It's like, yeah, I'm hiding a little bit of negativity from the world. My posts are about positivity. That's what I want my feed to be about. So therefore, it's my choice, it's my page, it's gone. And then, if they keep at it, I just block them because I have that option to do that. And the personal development has moved me to the next level on that. And there's no doubt in my mind that within the next 6 months, my business will be on a whole new level because I now am on a whole new level and I'm able to see the bigger picture now. And my key challengers have really helped me with that and realizing, I have been doing this stuff. It's just I haven't been doing it on a big enough scale. But now I have that confidence to be able to just, hey, just go and ask the person now. And I'm able to start, just general, real conversations with people and not feel like I was kind of like, oh, are they going to feel like I'm selling them something? It's like, no, I'm responding to a post because I like what they put up there. Because for me personally, I don't go after the fitness tags or anything like that. I'm going after connections with people that I can relate to on other areas. And then that's where the fitness and all that, when we get to know each other, it's like, oh, I'm a health and fitness coach. Well, what is that? And then we start the whole conversation with that. So I'm going outside of looking for the hashtags of health and fitness and clean eating because I feel like a lot of people might be getting the same messages coming to them. It's going within, other interests that I personally have and can relate to the person. Because I want to make sure I can relate to them at least on some level before I start having a conversation.
That's great. Thanks for sharing it. It seems like that's having like a lot of results for you, and it's hard to stand up to even when that like poking holes is coming from your family. Like that's really difficult. So kudos to you on being clear on like what it is you want and who you are. I think that's awesome. And kind of taking a step back and like touching on like what I mentioned around like mindfulness is that and this isn't specific to the nasty Facebook comments, but it just like jogged a thought in my head that it's like because you have this like self-empowerment, right, and like who you are and what you want, like it doesn't mean that you can you can choose to just dismiss uncomfortable situations or negativity or even just like hurt. Like we have emotions, like we're people. That's what differentiates us between robots, right? And like it's okay to like actually it's preferred so that you're not just burrowing it and avoiding it, like to feel it, just be with it. And whatever it may be, like if you're starting to self-sabotage and I don't know, you messed up something and you're like, ugh, that wasn't the outcome I wanted, like that sucks, and like just don't go into the storytelling and just like be with it, and feel it and learn from it and then decide to move forward. And I'm not, Marlene, like focusing it on you, but it's just like in mindfulness in general, because there could be this like stigma that it's like, oh, I just have to like meditate and just be comfortable with who I am and accept everything. It's like, no, like that's not the thing. It's like you're mindful of what's in front of you, and there's always going to be situations that are uncomfortable and that we don't agree with and that feel really terrible. And it's like up to us for our own health to accept it. And it's almost like, okay, but here's a little chair. Like I'm going to give you a little chair and you can sit on it, but I'm not going to like allow you to come into my life and allow like you to make decisions for me. So, I just bring that up as like, that's something that has come to me over like the past couple of years. It's not easy, but I don't like react to it, but I have the triggers. Like Melissa said, I'm like, I have the triggers. We all do, but I recognize them. And I'm like, ugh. All right, I can choose to react and be right, even though I know I'm right. But like, what am I going to get out of that? I'm like, it's not going to serve me well. But in the past, I did. And it's just like, it might give you a little bit of hit of adrenaline or something and you won. But it's like at the cost of what? At the cost of like a relationship and making someone else feel wrong. So like, I just bring that up because being present in the moment and pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and being okay when it's scared and just feeling it, like even fear, it's going to happen. Just feeling it and being like, okay, I'm still alive. Like I didn't die. I'm here, you know, and like just embracing that, because then, you know, for the next time, it's not going to be as scary.
Norma raised her hand.
Okay, last thing, I swear, but that just reminded me of something, you know, when you choose to either say something or what you choose to say, when someone brings negativity. There's something that we learned at church. It's been a while back, but they talked about the difference between being meek and being weak. And being weak is different than being meek, in that meek is you're capable of, but you choose not to. And that is basically restraint. And that is just always something that I have thought about, because I thought, well, if I don't like go off the handle and go up against this person that has brought this negativity to me or pointed something negative out, then I'm going to be seen as weak. But that's not weak. That's being meek, and that's choosing not to blow up and respond and give them the result that they were looking for in the first place by, you know, poking at you and trying to get a rouse out of you. So I always think about that, you know, the difference between meek and weak are very different. And so it doesn't mean we can't, it means we choose not to.
So this has all kind of made me think of something that I wanted to share, and I talked about today with some people. So I went to Super Saturday yesterday. Did anyone go to Super Saturday? No? I went to Super Saturday yesterday, and then I went to Super Sunday today. Like, I got a double dose of Beachbody, like, live, you know, get-togethers this weekend, live events. And I want to just encourage you guys, especially because we're all so spread out all over the country, is to really, like, try and find a community, a local community, of other people that get you, because there's really something special about being in the same room with a bunch of people that just completely understand you. You know, like, same thing with these calls. We can all relate, and it's great because everyone's understanding and getting what everyone else is saying. We've all been there. We've had that kind of experience. And, you know, like, I started in Clarksville. We started doing these, like, on our Clarksville group pages, they just started having monthly meetups. So, you know, maybe that's something you guys can take charge of. Like, see if there's a Houston Beachbody coaches page. I know there's a Chicago one. There's got to be, you know, like, get in that group and then say, like, hey, does anyone want to go meet and do, like, a wine tasting? Even if it's something, like, completely not Beachbody related. Does anyone want to do a potluck? Does anyone want to go grab coffee and just chat? Like, I just want to meet some other coaches. You know, like, we did a lot of potluck dinners and get-togethers back in Clarksville, and we want to start to bring that back to Austin, because our page got, like, when we came to Austin, Jenny and I, when I say we, she's my success partner that also moved from Tennessee, Clarksville area down here. Like, love her, and I love that we got to kind of move together at the same time. It was great, but we get in this Austin page, and it's like, I have a bag of Shakeology to sell. Who wants to buy it? I have Performance Line. Who wants to buy it? I'm like, no one wants to buy your stuff. Like, we can all go buy that stuff and get our own volume on it. And I'm not going to buy yours. You know, go, like, give that to someone or help a friend out. Give it to them at a discount. You know, so we want to change that dynamic of our page and our group in Austin. And I know you all have that ability to do that in your local communities and just start, you know, reaching out, because there really is something so empowering about being, you know, and then not just, like, starting that within your communities and trying to get together with people, but just going to those live events too when they have them. Like, Super Saturdays are so important. I mean, I went to 2. I used to not go to them. You know, I'll admit, like, I thought for a while I could go see what they said and the coach breaking news the next day. I don't need to go. It's not important. Like, you know, whatever, but you're not going to hear those stories. Like, yes, I can see what Beachbody talked about in the video they send, but I'm not going to hear, you know, like, I got up and spoke yesterday at the Austin one. I shared my story. If someone didn't go to that Austin meeting, they wouldn't have heard my story. And it's not even about just hearing the stories, but it's about that community and just being in that room with people, like-minded people that get you, and getting out and meeting people and experiencing that. So I just want to encourage you guys all, coming off of 2 super Saturdays, to make sure you make it to the next one. It's January 7th and 8th. Saturdays the 7th, Sundays the 8th. So you can check your local places to go to those.
Cool. So Alyssa and Melissa, I can probably go all night and you guys wouldn't want that, because I love talking about this type of stuff. And then like whatever you guys talk about, it gets me more intrigued. I'm like, ooh, I want to research this. But I'm going to be mindful in that notion of mindfulness. I'm going to be mindful. How long do you guys usually, I should have asked you this before, but how long are your calls usually?
They're about 30 minutes to an hour. So sometimes they can go like an hour and a half if we let it, but we normally like make them an hour.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe we can do part 2 another time.
I would love to, because yeah, I would love to. I actually, so as a result of doing that church test, like Sherry storytelling today, they actually invited me back to do like a kids camp this summer, and like I'm so excited to do that. And like I know the like achiever, but the controlled now focused achiever in me is like, ooh, what do I want to like, what's their interest? And like, this is a whole new, as Marlene was saying, like, this is a whole new target market. And I get to like speak to these young, impressionable kids. Like, that's really awesome. So I say that, and I'm like always willing to talk about anything that has to do with like self-development, because it's all about like getting what we want like in life, right? Like it's not at the expense of something else, and it doesn't have to be in just one area. It's like our entire lives, because like the biggest thing, and I'll leave you at this unless there's other questions or commentary, but like is we're either growing or we're dying. I think Tony Robbins always says that, and it's true. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. Like we feel complacent. That's probably like, there's something to be said about routine, and that enables us to be really efficient in some areas so that we can go deeper and, use our energy in other avenues. So like, it doesn't mean we need to be like head out in every single aspect of our life, because we would be exhausted and probably just not successful. But like, it does mean that like we, in order to continue to grow, like we need to continue to push ourselves, because, and you guys as coaches, probably, I don't know you all that well, but like you probably already know this. It's like, no one's going to keep track of you, right? Like you're not in school where they're going to be like, here's your report card. Like they're not. And it's like you have to develop that accountability. And like Alyssa said, it's just so important, whether it's like work related or not, like find those people you just connect to genuinely, so you don't have to put your guard up, and you can just get right into like the conversations. And it doesn't have to be like work related, results producing conversations. It could be just like sharing something that happened to you and that like was really like a magnificent breakthrough, or like a breakdown and it really sucked, and you want to like gain expertise from someone, like it just enables you to go to that place, that like raw place where you're vulnerable. But like, who cares? Because if it's that type of community and if no one's judging you, and if they are, that's their own fault. Like you're not going to worry about that, right? Like you're not going to allow their judging to allow you to tell your stories about yourself. So it's like, I look at it as it's like, not only are like we choose to either grow or die, it's also like every day I want to learn something. So like, I don't care if I'm the only one to ask the question, like someone else might be thinking about it, and either way I want to know the answer. So like, like let's learn together. Or it might be, I don't know, whatever is like strikes me as curiosity, it's going to help me move forward on something else, like maybe going a little bit deeper in that one area, whatever that is. Like challenge you to like, do that every day, because then you just get like addicted to it, and it starts to play out in every aspect of your life.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. And I put a little challenge in the chat, for you guys, if you want, like step out of your comfort zone, get out of, let go of the fear. And, if that's maybe what's been holding you from getting involved in a local group, like post in the group, introduce yourself, say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I've been coaching this long, I want to meet other coaches. Does anyone want to go grab coffee? Does anyone want to go grab lunch? Like, I would love to meet other local coaches. And just try, it's going to put you out of your comfort zone, sure. But think about it. They're all like you. They may be nervous too. Maybe they've been wanting to meet new people, and you're going to, you all have that common mindset. But then you come from different backgrounds. You can share stories. You can learn from each other. You're going to grow from doing that. Change comes and growth comes from stepping out of your comfort zone. And the more you do it, it's going to get a little bit easier. And I think, not that it's going to get easier, but I think that fear will go down. You'll be able to break that barrier, and the fear will dissipate the more you're able to do it. But this was amazing. This was like our week's worth of personal development wrapped up in one night, but you're still going to do it the other 6 days, right? So thank you so much, Carissa. And we would love to have you back again and speak to us again. Jessica's in. She's going to do it. That's awesome. So, Melissa, do you have any announcements for us or anything you want to say to wrap it up?
I don't, but I did have like a little homework assignment to say, like, I think you guys should all go out and write down your priorities. What are your priorities in life? And just see, like, after you write them down and, order them, what's your first priority, second, third, do like your first 5 or whatever, and see if that's really what you're doing. See if those priorities meet your actions, and I think that if you go from there, like Carissa talked about, you'll really see if you're truly doing what you want. So I thank you for Carissa for getting on. I really appreciate it. I think that was awesome. I could relate in so many levels, and I know so many other people that are going to listen to this call can relate as well. So I appreciate it.
That's awesome. No, thank you. Thanks for allowing me to. Like, I was really excited. You ladies are all like really engaging, and thanks, because I get my energy. Like, I'm an extrovert, if you couldn't tell. So I get my energy from other people, and you guys are definitely like the one self-development class. It's like, we call it playing the game of life, and it's like you're either on the court or you're choosing to be in the stands of your own game of life, right? And like, you guys didn't just stay on the court or on the sidelines. You guys were in the game participating, and like, that's how you're going to grow, is participating, because you can choose to participate or you can choose to not participate, but it's going to come at a cost. So that's awesome. I'd love to, whatever comes up, like, let me know how I can help support, because you guys rock. I'd love to listen. I know we're talking tomorrow too, so I get to hear a little bit more about what you guys are doing from a business aspect.
Yeah, definitely. I look forward to talking to you about that, and we'll get you back on to talk to us sometime in the near future. And thank you guys so much for hopping on, and we'll see you 2 weeks from now will be our next team call. So that's it. So we'll wrap it up. Good night, everyone, and thanks again, Carissa. Love you.
Thank you. I love you too. I'll send you those resources too tomorrow, okay?
Perfect. Thank you. All
right. Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Good night.
Have a good one.
You too.